Conflict abroad rattles campaign politics here at home. The former president is tried in criminal court and the court of public opinion, and the Republican speaker owes his gavel to Democrats. For all of that, we turn to the analysis of Capehart and Lewis. That's Washington Post Associate Editor Jonathan Capehart and Matt Lewis, columnist for the Daily Beast. David Brooks is away. Great to have you back.
Hi,
Matt, good to have you here.
Good to be here.
So let's start with President Biden and a lot of the big news around Israel this week. We saw the report Nick Schifrin was reporting on earlier that basically found that Israel may be in violation of international humanitarian law, but the U.S. will continue to supply Israel with weapons. That follows President Biden earlier this week, Jonathan, saying not only were they pausing some weapons deliveries, but that he would consider pausing more if Israel launches a full-scale invasion into Rafah, where 1 million Gazans are now sheltering. How do you look at this and square all these things, some of which seem to be in contradiction with each other?
Right. Well, with all of these things, we cannot look at them in isolation. These are not isolated incidents. They are all part of what I view as an enormous diplomatic effort on the part of the president to get Israel and Hamas to agree to a ceasefire, namely Hamas, agree to a ceasefire maybe for 6 weeks, and then hope that it holds and that they can bring an end to the conflict. But in terms of what the president is saying, you know, I interviewed him on March 9th, where I asked him, what's your red line with Benjamin Netanyahu? Is it invasion of Rafah? He said yes. Fast forward to May 8th in an interview with CNN, he's also once again asked a red line question, and he said, well, you know, if Netanyahu invades Rafah, I will halt weapons shipments. I don't see how that is in contradiction to what this report says. I think, you know, Nick's report was very good, and the interviews were very good, and just sort of showing how the administration is trying to do a lot of things. And, you know, buffing and polishing things here and there, because I think ultimately what the administration wants and what the president wants is for Israel and Hamas to get back to the negotiating table in Cairo and agree to a ceasefire. Matt,
is it clear to you where President Biden's red line is on this?
Well, first, I think we should be drawing red lines on our enemies, not our allies, right? But I think Biden has a problem right now, and it is a political problem. It is axiomatic in politics that if you try to please everybody, you will end up pleasing nobody. And up until now, I think that domestically, in terms of domestic politics here in America, Joe Biden had a problem certainly with kind of young progressives who were unhappy that he was standing firmly with Israel. I think now that has become muddied. And I think we're now in a position where, number one, it's unlikely that these young progressives who are calling him things like Genocide Joe are going to come around to liking Joe Biden and voting for him. He also, though, risks alienating, number two, Democrats who are pro-Israel, kind of the mainstream Democrats. And the other thing that I think isn't really being talked about is the impact this may have on never-Trump conservatives. We saw people like Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley, Mitt Romney come out and strongly condemn Joe Biden's comments about Rafah. Keep in mind, Nikki Haley just this week got 21% of the vote in a Republican primary in Indiana. There are people out there who were open to voting for Joe Biden, and I think they're less likely today than they were a week ago.
On the domestic politics front, Jonathan, was the tough talk for Bibi Netanyahu, the pausing of some weapons deliveries, was that President Biden bending to political pressure here at home?
No. I mean, Matt, love you to pieces. but anyone who thinks that there are domestic political considerations on the part of the president that's driving his decisions, you haven't been paying attention to Joe Biden. We have to remember, this is a man who's been on the world stage for 50 years. During those years, he was chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He's known Prime Minister Netanyahu for 50 years. He's about using the power of diplomacy to bring about a resolution. He's done a lot of things on the world stage that domestically have hurt him. The withdrawal from Kabul and how disastrous that was. But he stood by that decision because it was the right thing to do. And I think that the president doing what he's doing from, carrots and sticks with Netanyahu, he is doing it because for him, the resolution is a ceasefire deal, however he can get it.
Matt, it's worth pointing out previous U.S. presidents, including Republican presidents, Reagan, H.W. Bush, W. Bush as well, have all withheld weapons from Israel at some point. Why shouldn't this one?
Well, look, I think there's a couple things. First, this is a little different. Some people certainly have said that what happened on October 7th is the worst thing that has happened to the Jewish people since the Holocaust. So I think qualitatively, this is different. I would also say from a political standpoint, I mean, someone like Ronald Reagan, I think, was seen as a strong, tough leader. And he was someone who, if anything, the perception was maybe he's a little too bellicose, right? With Joe Biden, and you mentioned Afghanistan, I mean, that may or may not have been the right move, but I tell you what, Joe Biden's poll numbers have not returned to where they were before the Afghanistan withdrawal. He is himself facing an existential crisis in this election in November, and if this turns out to be anywhere close to Afghanistan in terms of what it does to his approval ratings, which are not great, then he may be out of a job come November.
I do want to turn now to the former president's criminal hush money trial in New York, because there was a lot of headlines around the witness testimony, in particular that of adult film star Stephanie Clifford, who's known professionally as Stormy Daniels. Some very tense moments as she's being cross-examined, including this exchange with Trump attorney Susan Necheles, when Necheles, the Trump attorney, asked her, "You're celebrating the indictment by selling things from your store," referencing her merchandise in which she's associating herself with Mr. Trump. And Stormy Daniels replies, "Not unlike Mr. Trump." Jonathan, what did you take away from Ms. Daniels and the other testimony this week?
Well, I think Stormy Daniels, she's the central figure in all of this. It was important to hear from her, and I'm not surprised if you follow Stormy Daniels on Twitter. Her testimony and her giving as good as she was getting from the defense would not be a surprise. That response was not a surprise. There was another response that she had about whether stories were made up, and her response to Susan Necheles was also very funny, inspired, and turned it around on her. I mean, look, Donald Trump had a mugshot taken in Georgia and almost immediately turned around and started making money off it from his supporters for his any number of his criminal defense trials, cases.